Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, my name is Sean Reed. I'm with Fairshake Environmental Legal Services. I've been with the organization for about 3.5 years. We work on amplifying environmental access and education to community members and making sure that their needs are met. We also provide pro bono services to community members and organizations who are impacted by issues within the government. And thank you. The Western Pennsylvania Regional Data Center is an inclusive open data partnership between the University of Pittsburgh, Allegheny County, and the City of Pittsburgh. It is managed by staff based at the University Center for Social and Urban Research. The Regional Data Center makes civic data accessible and usable to the community by publishing open data, developing data access tools, providing technical assistance, and building data literacy. The project, the WPRDC, helps to inform many community initiatives in the areas of health, housing, environmental protection, transportation, and data justice. Steve Saylor is the lead software developer, and Bob Gradeck is the project director for the Western Pennsylvania Regional Data Center. This project is designed to help make data about the lead risk available property by property for communities across Allegheny County. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that introduction.
Thanks. So Steve, you ready to go?
Yep.
Yeah, so both Steve and I are with the University Center for Social and Urban Research, and we provide kind of infrastructure for community engaged research. And the project that we're part of is the Western Pennsylvania Regional Data Center. And what do we do? So we work with community organizations and governmental organizations to make their data available as open data, but we also do a lot more than that. We help people use data through outreach workshops and training, and then we build data access tools to make it easier for people to take action using data. And you'll see the example here through the partnership that we have with the coalition. And so the project itself, the Regional Data Center, is actually a partnership between the city, the county, and the University of Pittsburgh, City of Pittsburgh, Allegheny County, and University of Pittsburgh. And so we've been in place for 10 years now. And we provided inclusive infrastructure so that a number of organizations that have data to share can share it as open data with the broader community. And so you could see some of the publishing organizations that we have there. So if you are interested in publishing data with us, we'd be happy to have that conversation. Just let us know. And so our partnership here is to really help kind of meet the mission of our overall project, the Regional Data Center, and make more data about lead and data that can help people stay safe, publicly accessible, and available. And that a big part of that work is improving data accessibility through tools that we built. And Steve will show that example here in a second.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, so from our end, what kind of began with our partnership with LSA was this tool we were working on called Parcels and At, which I know there's some folks that aren't from the region on here, so it's a little Pittsburghese for parcels and such. I guess that'd be the way to put it generally. And so they wanted to work with us to make more data about lead safety, lead risks at a parcel level available and on the tool.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna go. Oh, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, if I could say, like, the challenge that people have with parcel data is it comes in from like multiple sources, and so it's really rich data from lots of different sources like permits and code violations and assessment records and sales records, but the data doesn't always talk to each other. It's hard to link it together. It's hard to work with data that you might have in like 5 or 6 different spreadsheets and link them together. So what we try to do is solve the problem of data accessibility around parcel data.
Yeah, and so one of the primary ways we're trying to do that with this tool is by creating this parcel explorer. And so you can kind of see a picture here on the right side of the slide where there's a map where you can click on parcels. You can see here the steel building selected in the moment. And this dashboard on the right has all of that unified data from parcels. And as Bob mentioned, a lot of this data comes from different publishers, different departments within those publishers, and they're collected for different use. And so in order to actually like on your own or for like, just a resident or even researchers to have to like to join that data and get an idea of holistically what's happening with the parcel in regards to open data would require either like some really good Excel wizardry or basic data science skills. And so it was a bit of a lift. And so what as Bob mentioned, we wanted to kind of unify that, and so that's what the dashboard on the right does. In addition to unifying all that data, making it accessible and linking it to other things, we also for a lot of the data fields can map them across parcels. So in this example here, you can see in the dashboard that all the parcels are styled based on their parcel use class, which is kind of like a similar to like what they're zoned for, but whether it's residential, commercial, industrial, and stuff like that. And in addition to just looking through the data and exploring it, we also wanted to provide a tool that allows people to download that data without downloading that data specifically for the areas they're interested in and only for the data they want. And so a key part of that was building the bulk downloaders section of Parcels.net. And so what this does is it provides you with or first I should say, a section where you build your spatial search query. So you don't have to know like programming languages or SQL or anything. You can use this map and like click neighborhood or municipalities and select and build up a search query of what you're interested in. So, since our offices are in Oakland, one thing I always use is, there's 4 Oakland neighborhoods. And so if you're interested in Oakland on the whole, you could click all 4 Oakland neighborhoods. You could also you can also enter like a list of parcel IDs, or if you zoom in on the map, you can click parcel by parcel or draw a shape. So if you're interested in maybe just a single block, you could either select all those parcels individually or draw like a shape around it. And then you can, as you'll see in the next slide, pick what data you want to download just about that area. And so in the next slide here, just kind of show a bit of the fields you can pick. So you don't have to download all of the data about the parcels that you selected. You can pick specifically what data you're interested in. So here you can see a few examples of some of the data sets that also show up in the Explorer. But here you can go through and pick all the data. You can use the little info buttons to get descriptions of what the data actually might be. And you can go through and kind of build up your query of search of data that you want so that you can get just the data you want for just the parcels you want. When you're done with that, you can download a zip file that contains just the data you want for just the parcels, as well as some documentation. And if you did some sort of larger spatial search, like you picked neighborhoods, it'll also give you a list of all the parcels that fell within that search. And that can be useful if you want to come back again. You can just upload that file and repeat your query on those parcels if you're looking to, compare data across time. So before we started working with LSA on this lead safety project, we had a lot of data that was already in the data center about parcels. So most of it came from the county's, Allegheny County's assessment data. And so this is the data set that is, records all of the assessed values for all the parcels in Allegheny County. It also has details on building conditions, the ownership. So this is kind of interesting. There's an ordinance in Allegheny County that prevents, or I should say, disallows the publication of property data with owner names in a way where it would be searchable by the owner. So this means in the open data, like this assessment file, we don't have the owner names. We just have their taxing address. However, in the real estate portal from the county, there is the owner name, but you can't search by it, but you're allowed to display it. So what we do is when you look at a parcel, we on the fly hit up the real estate portal website and pull out the name so you can get an idea of who the owner is for that property on this tool as well. But when you see things that are done with ownership here, it's all done by the taxable address. So yeah, there's details on ownership to the taxable address. There is building conditions, as I mentioned, like the structure description. So like year built, what type of structure it is, with the, is it brick or wood? And like how many floors and stuff. We also have detail on real estate sales. And so every time a property is sold, where there's a new record added to the real estate sale data set. And then within the city of Pittsburgh, we have a couple other data sets that are available only in the city of Pittsburgh and not in the rest of the county at the moment. And those include building code violations. So this is all the PLI and even DOMI, Department of Mobility and Infrastructure violations. PLI is permits, licenses, and inspections, as well as so violations and permits. So for each property, if someone requested a permit and submitted it to a PLI, that will show up on here. And so you can get an idea of, what kind of violations and what kind of changes are happening. We also have some other data related to parcels, including foreclosure filings, if a property is going through foreclosure, conservatorship records. This is the case where like an abandoned property is, like a nonprofit or like a government organization is attempting to take conservatorship over an abandoned property for like blight remediation and So as part of our work with LSA, we focused on getting lead risk and lead safety data. And so this involved primarily collecting waterline composition data. So based on the lead and copper rule, getting an idea from the water authorities on what the waterline composition is on the public side and the private side. So that means, what is the pipe made of from the street and then into the property, into the house. And so a lot of those have collected the data that, says like, oh, this pipe is made of copper, it's made of lead, it's made, can't remember what the other ones are. There's galvanized metal and stuff like that. But most of it's lead and copper. And then we have, so we went through a whole process, and I'll kind of go over that in a few slides later, kind of the process of doing that and pulling that data. We also have like a special filter on the building permits to just like the code, just the permits that are related to lead remediation. And it's same with code violations. We've limited code violations to certain code numbers that relate to lead safety. We also limit some housing conditions that are related to lead, primarily the building age. So for residential properties with the building, we have a building age that lets us know when the property was built. And so we kind of highlight whether or not that, the lead risk based on like the 1978 lead paint ban. So you can see like, oh, it was a property built before 1978. We also highlight, differently if it's before 1960 and 1940. I can't remember off the top of my head right now. We have documentation in the property age. If you click the read more button there, that explains that there's kind of like a certain drop-offs throughout the 20th century of the amount of lead paint, the prevalence of lead paint over time. So while 78 was like the big cutoff, and there's other big chunks of time where it might also be relevant to look at the difference between a property built in the 1940s compared to the 1960s. All right. So in addition to adding those data in the data set, we also added a couple more maps based on those data. So one that you see here is the lead line composition. So I have the legend a bit cut off here, but the copper looking ones are properties that have non-lead water lines. And then the green ones we've found to have lead lines based on the water authority. In this case, this was in the city of Pittsburgh, so this would have been from EWSA's data. We also added a map for housing age that kind of shows those tiers over a couple colors on the map, so you can kind of get an idea of how the lead paint risk based on when the property was built on a holistic like spatial level. Okay, so a lot of the work that we did what involved taking finding and then processing the lead and copper data that was provided by the water authorities. This wasn't an easy process because while a few of them had the data mostly publicly available for us to get, it wasn't in the easiest form to work with. So I have two. Oh, go ahead, Bob.
How many water authorities do we have in the county? It's got to be what, 40? I forget. There's like
Remember off the top of
42
my head.
school districts, 130
Yeah.
municipalities. I don't remember exactly how many water authorities we have, but there are a lot.
It's quite a lot, yeah. And I mean, there's some that are very small, and then there's some that are very big, which are the ones we are thankfully able to get a lot of data on without having to ask because they had it public. And that so here you can see the two ways that we receive data. Most of them came in their maps that they published using ArcGIS, like their open ArcGIS data portal. So this data wasn't available to download directly, but we were able to see how the web browser rendered this map data, and we're able to use the APIs that rendered that map data when you click it to download the map as actual data files so we could process it. In addition,
it's important to have all this data in one place too, so that you can kind of do more planning and not like send people out. Like you shouldn't have to know who your water authority is to be able to look up your property.
and also to standardize it. Some of these, the way they report this data, while it's mostly the same because there are like state requirements, they do report it a little bit differently with different field headings, different levels of detail about water line composition. So we found the kind of lowest common denominator of just lead or not was the safe thing we could do across all of them. But yeah, you can see the map on the right, and then also on the left, this is from Westview. They publish their data as just PDFs, and Westview covers the Westview Water Authority covers a whole bunch of different municipalities in the north and northwest of Allegheny County, not just Westview. And so for each of those, they had a PDF that had a list of the addresses, and then what the material was made of on the public and then the customer system side, or the public or private side. And so, yeah, in addition to that, some of the data, didn't exist and we had to request it. Scrape data from the websites and standards, yeah. And then after we pulled in all of this data, and kind of turned it into something we could work with. So in the case of the PDFs, running through and extracting all the data from them, from the maps, formatting that data into tables, we had to go through and link all of that point and address based data to the parcels, because our parcels in that tool is at a parcel level, which is not necessarily the same as an address level. You can think of something like an apartment building, will be one, parcel that have multiple addresses, and not even just like unit numbers, but addresses with different street numbers if it has like two doors. And so I will get into the challenges we had with that. So the first one was fragmented data formats. So, this was the fact that we were dealing with both maps and tables, in formats that weren't just like readily computer readable. And so that required some work to get those in a place where we could operate on them with code. The data are collected by humans, so there is some like noticeable but small human error here and there, and so having to work around that and make sure that we don't miscategorize things, it was important. And I kind of alluded to before, addresses are not parcels, so points there may be, you can see on the top picture there's a single parcel that in our records has a like single address that's associated with the parcel. As far as the county's concerned, like that's the address for the parcel. But that parcel also contains several other addresses on 3 different streets. And so, having to, unify that data, we couldn't just use addresses. We had to also look at it spatially. And so we went through a process where and I should say our colleague Ross Riley on the Western PA Regional Data Center team spent a whole lot of time, did a lot of really great work, making sure that the data we can present is as accurate as possible by not only looking at and matching addresses, but also, comparing the points to parcels geospatially. And then even on top of that, that didn't get us as far as we would like. So having to do a whole bunch of more, detailed text analysis on the addresses to find addresses to kind of give us a list of addresses that were very likely and could, we needed to review to make sure. So in cases where, and this shows up in the challenges under addresses, the different ways to write an address. There's whether or not when you use ordinal numbers is tenth TENTH, or is it 10TH? And so is west spelled out in a west street, or is it just a W? And so having to standardize all of those and try and unify all that data took a lot of work, but we have a good amount of the 500,000 plus parcels in Allegheny County. We have a good amount, like 85%, that fell within these. I say 85% of all those parcels that fell within our primary water authorities worked out. And so here you can see like an example of a point that doesn't even land on a parcel on the it just is in the middle of the street. And then here you can see what I assume might be human error, where either an address was entered wrong when they geocoded it, and so it ended up on the other side of the street. And so you have this Pan America dot that's in the PWSA service area, and you can see this parcel here. So these types of things we had to, whether or not we decided to make executive decisions, a lot of these we have different categories where there's data that we're pretty sure this is what it is, and we're open about what that level of certainty is when we publish the data. Okay. So we have some upcoming data and features. So in addition to the waterline data that we worked on, one of the other key things we were working on is getting more data and updated data from a lot of our local partners. So one that's in progress right now is the Allegheny County Health Department's housing and environmental inspections and community environment inspections data. And so this is a pretty rich data set. We have it on the data center. It has inspections and violations, just like the city's permits and violations inspections. But it doesn't have the parcel IDs, so it's only at an address level. And so Our partners at County Stat at Allegheny County and at the health department are currently working on adding parcel IDs to that data feed for the open data, so that as these inspections happen in the future and for a big chunk of the extant data, we'll be able to add that to parcels and link it to parcels, and people will be able to see um, more environmental violations and inspections across the county and not just in the city of Pittsburgh. There's also possibly in the future city rental registry or licensure data. So if anything in that process happens, data related to that, data related to parcels based on that, will likely end up being published, and we can that to the tool. There's also been discussion about lead safe homes designation data and working with, I believe, the health department and the housing authority on that data. Um, and also working on aggregate data related to lead inspection and risk assessment. So we don't want to have clear reports directly at a parcel level for people's privacy, but it could be something where we can report on the census tract that a parcel is in. So we could have census tract maps that show data about LIRA as well, and timing your EBLL. So we currently have EBLL, elevated blood lead level data, at a census tract level, another one of those privacy concerns. From 2020 is the most recent we have. And so when you look at a parcel and you go to the lead section, it'll, if there is EBLL rate data related to that parcel census tract, we'll report it. And then finally, as far as features go, we kind of had started working on a bit of what I'm calling a landlord dashboard for now, which takes all the stuff we've built into parcels and aggregates it at an owner level. So you can look at owners' portfolios, get some aggregate statistics. So you can just kind of see as a demo, we have like a chart of all this owner's properties, assessed values, and then you can check through all their parcels. But we could also, you could get aggregate statistics on, we could have, lead-based code violations per property as an aggregate statistic about a landlord. Or just code violations. We could do a whole breakdown. So that's something we'll be looking to work on in the future.
We're gonna have to do a little fundraising around that too, though. But like this is very much a prototype of like, yes, we can connect data across property owners, and so we could get a better sense of how responsible they might be in terms of property maintenance or in terms of pulling permits to do work on properties. And so I know that like a lot of people are looking to have conversations about that. So we want to be able to inform those discussions. And then, use cases, I think, is our next, right? Yeah, so we thought like different ways of using this data is just something like we've had conversations. And I know like Steve, we've talked about, hey, it's nice to have all of this data integrated in one place on a map with all of the other data that we have about these properties. So you can target your outreach to say, oh yeah, hey, we know you might be eligible for a lead line replacement. And by the way, you are a homeowner and you qualify for these types of things, or here's what the process looks like, rather than, having to look on the water authority's website to check like, oh, is there a lead line on this property? And then you have to jump over to the county real estate website and see, oh, is this person a homeowner and who am I talking to? So having that all together in one place will save time, and it will allow you to be much more targeted in your outreach. You can even, include other features, like if it's a senior home repair program or something like that. Having additional data about the property might be helpful there. And then, in terms of planning and enforcement, and Steve, like you've worked with code enforcement in Turtle Creek Valley COG, and I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that partnership.
Yeah, so at TCP COG, they have a tool called code enforcement. I actually believe believe some folks from the Turtle Creek Valley COG will be speaking or on a panel later today. And it's what they use for their building and code inspections, building inspections. And so when we built Parcels and At, we had, familiar with folks there and the folks working building Code Enforce, the software they use for it. And it was one of our early things we did was build an integration where whatever parcel they're looking at in Code Enforce, there's a link to the Parcels and At data, which allows the building inspectors to get some more contextual data about a property, but also more importantly, then use our ownership mapping function on Parcels and At, which allows you to highlight and list other properties that are owned by the same owner. And so this allows them to then get an idea of, is this landlord, is this property owner, do they have similar violations in other buildings? Is this are they a repeat offender? And then kind of helps them with their um, with helping remediate these issues. And yeah. So yeah, I guess at that point, be happy to take any questions or suggestions. Before we get to that, or do you have something to say, Bob? But I was going to just
Yeah, I'm
pull
gonna
up the
have
link
to.
too.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to jump away in a second, but we do have a note in the chat about like being able to work outside of southwestern Pennsylvania. And yes, like definitely, if any of you have questions about this work, once you get into it, want to talk about additional data sources, and like we haven't had the chance to have that conversation here today, just send us an email. We do office hours on a weekly basis. We'd be happy to talk more about kind of what it is you're looking to do and maybe some of your own local contexts as well.
So yeah, I'll just leave this here for a minute. And then I guess leave it open for any questions. So yeah, so Larry Brooks asked a question of, will you be seeking funding to help pay for code enforcement staff to collect this information in the data center? Um, so on our end, the funding is mainly just for the data, like the data cleaning and working with the city and county, and their and the cogs, if eventually we can get to that too. Um, um, to like intake their data. On our end, the funding would be mainly about providing the infrastructure to run the software, and our time to develop tools and build data pipelines with those partners. And then as also asked about paying administrative person to assist code enforcement staff or even field technology tools that allow them to directly connect and download your database. So, and then all of our data is available on all the data that shows up in Parcels Net is available for download as part of the open data portal, the Western PA Regional Data Center at you can just go to wprdc.org and click data, and you can search through our data portal. Jennifer Sachs asked if building conditions is included in Parcels and That, and yes, we have as part of the assessment data, we have the different there's like CDU condition. There's a third one I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's like the three standard that the county uses in the assessment data, and so we here I think this. I doing? I guess so. Here's just an example here. So you can use building grade, condition, and CDU. So for this property I've selected, you can see it's average, average plus average and average, and we've kind of just put it in context of the possible grades.
And Steve, I was wondering if you could show how that links to the data source, like by clicking on the link, and then how people might be able to get additional detail about that data field. So like if you, yeah.
So yeah, each
the
section has a
data.
source. Yeah. And this will take you directly to the data portal. And here you can see the property assessments data set, as we call it, with all of the individual records. So here's the actual data.
Yeah. And the key thing is, like, for that context, if you scroll a little bit lower on that property assessments link that you just had,
Yeah.
like there's a data dictionary, and then there's also a guide for using this data too. So this is a pretty rich data set. It's like the Swiss Army knife of data sets. You can use it for all sorts of different things. And we want it to be able to be clear in terms of how people might be able to use it responsibly.
Okay, if we look at here, you can see
Yeah, if you scroll down, you'll see like
all of the fields.
all the fields with descriptions of what's in there. So if you have questions about what a field means, by clicking the link that sends you to the actual underlying data, you can do that. And our data like updates on some data sets like on a daily basis, other data sets a monthly basis. So when we get the data updates from our providers at the city and county or other sources, that will automatically be available through Parcels and that.
And also all of those, all that data dictionary metadata is for most fields available by clicking the little info button, and you can get the description there. So, and these are pulled right from the data center. So if our publishers change something, they update the documentation, it'll reflect in Parcels and that immediately.
Yep. So it's all connected.
Question about reduction in rental housing stock resulting from increased enforcement. And yeah, I can't speak to that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that one
I
either.
think
Yeah.
you can save that question for the afternoon panel discussions, where people will have some experiences that they can talk about. So we'll pin that and come back to it and ask some of our afternoon panelists to address that. The rental inspections happening in the city of Pittsburgh are so new that I don't think that we would be able to see anything related to reduction in housing stock, because it really did just get launched this summer. But there could be some experiences that people have from other communities. With that, Sean, do you want to come back on and keep us moving along then to see if it looks like Steve and Bob have been able to answer all of the questions in the chat, and appreciate your time, and think Sean's going to move us to our next piece. But
Yes.
thank you so much for the work that you all do.
Yeah, thanks again for the opportunity to share that with you.
Yeah. Thanks for having.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob and Steve, for that wonderful presentation.